I want you to know that it's okay to protect your peace. Hola! Welcome to Sana Sana Podcast. I'm your host, Eileen Lopez Tomei. I'm a first-generation Cuban-American woman, breast cancer survivor, and mother of 5. I'm also a certified professional coach. Sana Sana is dedicated to you, Hispanic and Latina breast cancer survivors who've always been the strong ones and now feel lost in their identity after cancer diagnosis. Every week, I'll be sharing the foundation of my ecosystem of healing coaching process, which I use to help my clients restore trust in their bodies, release perfectionism, advocate for themselves, and live from a place of healing and peace rather than survival. Tune in to hear my real-life experiences, carving a new path for myself after remission, but helping my coaching clients carve a new path for themselves too. Hello, sister survivors. Welcome to episode 11 of Sana Sana. Today, I'd like to open with a story about something that happened to me a few weeks before my bilateral mastectomy, before my breast cancer surgery. I was coming out of Mass, and I hadn't attended Mass in person for like 4 or 5 months at this point because I'd been in chemo, and because of the chemo, I was immunocompromised, and it was flu season during the time that I was in chemo treatment from September to January. And I'm on my way out of Mass, and I run into someone from the community, a cancer survivor, a breast cancer survivor, someone that went to school with my sisters-in-law, so someone known to the family and to us. She knows that I have been diagnosed with breast cancer and that I'm going through treatment, and asks how I'm doing. And so I bring her up to date, and then I tell her that I'll be having my surgery soon. And ¿pa qué fue eso, as we say in Cuban? She starts with her own story, launches into her own surgery experience, how terrible it was after, how helpless she felt during recovery. She couldn't lift her arms for I don't remember how long, for weeks. She had to be fed. I think her mother had to feed her, her husband or somebody had to wipe her when she went to the bathroom. So we're standing at the back of the church, and she's recounting all of this to me, and everybody's experience and the way that they relate to that experience and live or relive it is their own. But it wasn't offered as comfort or practical advice. It was really sort of like, I felt like she was saying, Mijita, prepárate, gird your loins, the worst is yet to come. And in that moment, I hate to say it, but I spiraled. My worst fear wasn't even losing my breasts that had nursed 4 of my 5 kids. My worst fear out of surgery was losing my independence, losing my agency, my physical agency, not anything bigger than that, but, losing my ability to take care of myself in that moment. And of course, my biggest fear was having to rely on others, but not just rely on others in the way that I've described in past episodes, but having to rely on others for my most basic care. And this woman, possibly with good intentions, had just handed me that fear in a very specific and vivid detail. In the back of our parish, 4 months into chemo, or maybe I was already past chemo by that point, but after 4 months of chemo and with this surgery on the horizon and radiation still ahead after that. So today we're going to talk about how to protect your peace during cancer treatment and survivorship, especially early post-treatment survivorship. Who gets to access you? What kind of energy can you afford to let in? How to set limits with people who love you and people who maybe don't know you that well, but their intention is to be helpful. and why setting those limits and setting those boundaries is not ungrateful or rude. It's a key part of your survivorship. And if you're a survivor who is still trying to figure out how to protect your healing space, that's part of the work that I do with cancer survivors. Book a free discovery call at paperbell.me/Eileen Lopez Tomei. The link is always in the show notes. Why is protecting our peace so hard for us? In Hispanic and Cuban families especially, we pride ourselves on having an MD after our names. Dr. Chiringa is what my husband calls me whenever I diagnose him and prescribe his treatment before he's ever set foot in an actual doctor's office. My people and I, we give opinions freely. We give recommendations freely, whether we're asked or not. We send links, we send home remedies, suggestions. We call with things that we read on social media, different studies, or, the research shows. And this is love. This comes from love. This is community. This is familismo expressed in the only way some people know how. And it's also a lot, especially when your resources are already low. And during treatment, and even after treatment, especially shortly after treatment, but during chemo, if you have chemo, surgery, if you have surgery, radiation, if you have that, really any combination of treatment, I think, every interaction with a survivor is either a deposit or a withdrawal from an already limited account. Because whether you're diagnosed at stage 1 or stage 4, this is a very traumatic event in your life. You come face to face with your mortality. The C word suddenly applies to you and your body. So you're already running on low resources. And a conversation that fills you up doesn't cost anything. There's no withdrawal there. If anything, it's a deposit. But a conversation that drains you or introduces more fear than what you're already trying to manage, even if it's a well-meaning conversation, it can cost you something that you really cannot afford to lose at that time in your life. And this interaction that I had with this woman is one of the most draining interactions that I had during my own survivorship, and one that I replayed. And I replayed it and I shared it with close friends, with my husband, and really I needed help and support to kind of bring myself down from the increased worries and fears that conversation brought in. And so why did I go into this fear spiral? Why does unsolicited advice or unsolicited storytelling land so hard during this time? So for me, during this, at this time, right, from the time I was diagnosed and through most of my treatment and probably a few years into my survivorship past treatment, I remember thinking, did I cause this? Did I give myself breast cancer? Could it have been the cigarettes that I smoked in college? Could it have been the Diet Cokes that I had with lunch for years? Was it the weight that I put on with my last 3 pregnancies? Was it the gestational diabetes in my 5th pregnancy? I was already kind of going through my memory and my habits and my history, looking for a cause or a reason for the breast cancer. Looking, for something that maybe I could have controlled and I didn't, or that I could control moving forward in the future to reduce the chances of recurrence. I was honestly looking for something to fix. And then someone arrives with a supplement, a diet, a link, a story. And even though they mean it as help, it lands right on top of that fear and that worry and that terror. Part of which is, did I cause this? Did I do something to make myself sick? And it says, that all those things, the unsolicited advice, the stories and all of that says, even when it doesn't mean to, maybe you did something wrong, survivor. Maybe if you do this differently from now on, you can fix it. And I want to separate blame out from here, right? the advice givers, the storytellers, the well-intended supplement providers are not the cause of the fear spiral. The fear already is there and is already potentially causing you to go down these fear rabbit holes. And the people that approach you or that update you, when after you share your updates, they update you back, especially if there are other survivors, they're trying to help. I really believe that most of them are genuinely trying to help, but their help has to be filtered through what you can actually receive in that moment. And you are the only one who can decide that, who can decide how full your cup already is, whether it's close to overflowing or not, how many resources you have available in that particular moment or throughout your survivorship to entertain advice and stories and, oh, let me tell you what happened to me or what happened to my aunt or what happened to my sister-in-law. So yeah, this is why these types of conversations can land hard during survivorship. And, the stories that people tell are well-meaning but heavy, or can be heavy. But there's also a lightness. So I told you about this encounter that I had with this woman at church. Let me tell you some kind of funny stories. So I've just been diagnosed. My sister, who loves me and who I love, is trying to help. Everybody's trying to help, especially in my immediate family. But my sister has read, or a friend of hers who had cancer told her that frankincense can shrink tumors. Frankincense oil, essential oil. And so she brings me some like grade A, high grade frankincense essential oil. And she gets me these little clear like medicine capsules that you can open and fill. And I dutifully fill these little capsules by hand, and I take however many I'm supposed to take, however many times a day for like a week. And like within 3 days, I'm burping up the taste of frankincense and probably burping up frankincense oil as well, like constantly. And I'm losing my appetite. And I haven't started treatment yet, but I'm going to start treatment. Or maybe I just started treatment. Anyway, the last thing you want to do as a cancer patient who is about to embark on chemotherapy is lose your appetite, because you're going to lose plenty of it and you need to be able to keep food down and keep calories in. So, that's the one thing that you cannot afford during chemo. So I stopped. I threw away the remaining capsules and I threw away the frankincense because I was like, I kind of had a moment where I was like, it's not hurting me. I'm pretty sure I told my oncologist everything. So if I had already seen my oncologist by then, I told her about the frankincense. And if I took it, probably she okayed it. I don't remember exactly if I had even gone to see my oncologist yet, which is probably part of what motivated me in those early days. It was like, oh my gosh, what do? I'll take anything to cure the cancer. So the lesson here is that not that my sister or that I was wrong to try this, natural remedy. The lesson is that my body, especially during chemo, is not a science experiment. Your body is not a science experiment. And you are allowed to say, no, thank you. Thank you for thinking of me. That's not going to work for me. Or let me check with my oncologist. Or, you know what? I have my first doctor's appointment in next week or in 2 weeks. I'll mention the frankincense to her. And I think I've said this in past episodes. It is really hard, especially after diagnosis, to slow your racing thoughts and to slow down, or at least it was really hard for me. And so I give myself tons of grace for having taken frankincense oil, and I laugh about it. And you need to give yourself grace too, right? Also, if my story is reaching you at a critical point, try to pause and just take a breath before you take that supplement or try that diet. Another funny story is I have a cousin, a beloved cousin, I love him very much, who's in California. He's a legal marijuana farmer. And as soon as he learns that I've got breast cancer, he starts to call and text me, and he starts sending me studies about cannabis and cannabis oil and how beneficial it is for breast cancer or cancer. It shrinks tumors. I mean, he is like really insisting, really strongly, lovingly, persistently, and encouraging me to take medical marijuana he's like, it'll help with your nausea when you start chemo. It'll help with your appetite. And I patiently explained to him more than once, I am a federal employee. Marijuana remains illegal at the federal level. So I cannot consume marijuana or marijuana products as long as that's true, even for medical purposes, even in a state where it's already legal. So even knowing that, even understanding the reality of my situation, he keeps calling and insisting, lovingly, wanting to help, because he doesn't want to see me suffer. And he feels like he can help fix what I'm going through, what I'm about to go through. And he wants to offer that. And that's not malice. It's helplessness expressing itself as persistence, right? And in that situation, I'm allowed to say, and I did. I mean, I was very clear with him. And you can be very clear as well. I hear you. I love you. That is not available to me. And then I don't want to talk about this anymore. Or let's talk about something else. Or is there anything else you can suggest that might be helpful and legal for me to do while I'm in treatment? So there's this pattern, right? Especially right after diagnosis, people want to help. They're offering you advice. They're telling you their stories. They're offering you supplements, the latest studies, the special diets, the research links, some of them science-based, many of them not. There was curcumin, resveratrol, I think was like the thing when I got diagnosed in 2016, right? The red wine derivative, or the thing that red wine has, a resveratrol. The keto diet was another thing. My other sister was like, she cooked for me and she started making keto recipes for me because she had read that the keto diet, which is very high in fat, very low in carbs and sugar, helps to starve the cancer cells of sugar, which, you know, there's a theory out there, a non-scientific theory, that cancer cells feed off of sugar. So again, like, I did it. I mean, the food was delicious and I ate it, and it came out of a place of genuine, like, okay, maybe this will help, right? And the same with my sister. She cooked for me because she wanted to help. What this kind of advice does to a newly diagnosed woman is that it implies that food choices and supplement regimens are variables that you can control, and that if that's true, then cancer at some level, and maybe was a variable that I could have controlled. If only I had eaten the right type of food, or had the right type of diet, or taken the right type of supplements, right? And that's not only scientifically oversimplified, and I understand why the mind goes there, right? You're dealing with something very complex and scary, and your mind just wants to keep it simple. But it's scientifically oversimplified, and it can also contribute more fear than help, even when it's loving. And again, in a situation like this, you're allowed to say, thank you for caring about me. I'm not taking in any new information about cancer treatments right now, or if you're in survivorship, I'm not taking in any new information about how to prevent cancer recurrence. My medical team has that covered. That's it. That's all you have to say, with a smile and with love. And if it's someone that you're very close to, I love you. You can start the sentence with, I love you. Thank you for loving me back. My medical team has got me covered. And that's it. And change the topic or change the conversation. Hi, I'm a 10-year breast cancer survivor. And when I was diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer, I hadn't had a mammogram in 4 years. I thought I could wait. I couldn't. For Latina and Hispanic women, breast cancer is the leading cause of cancer death, and we're often diagnosed later when it's harder to treat. But early detection changes everything. Today, the guidance is simple. Start mammograms at 40 and don't skip them. And while self-exams aren't a replacement, knowing your body helps you catch changes sooner. So if you've been putting it off, this is your sign. Schedule the mammogram. Know your body. Advocate for yourself, because your life is worth that appointment. As I'm telling you about all these stories about people who love me and who I love very much, who brought all these ideas and supplements and diets and things, that they and I thought might help accelerate the cure of, curing my cancer. By the way, there was never any question in my mind or in anyone in my immediate circle's mind about me pursuing traditional Western medical treatment for my cancer. So this wasn't offered in place of that. It was offered in support or in supplement to that. So, but I have kind of a counter story. So I have wonderful neighbors all around on my street. And one of my neighbors, she and her husband and their 2 girls live with her in-laws, or her in-laws lived with her. And her father-in-law, Enrique, who we also used to lovingly call Viejo, was battling pancreatic cancer at the same time that I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And he had someone who was bringing him the branches and the leaves of the moringa tree. And he was taking the leaves and making a tea that he was consuming. And I want to say that by the time I was diagnosed, he'd already been battling pancreatic cancer for a little bit. And they initially had given him a very short amount of time to live. I mean, he was diagnosed, as happens, unfortunately, with many people with pancreatic cancer, late. It had already metastasized. They didn't think he had a lot of time, and he lived for several years after that diagnosis. And he attributed that in part to this tea that he made from the leaves of the moringa tree. And moringa is known for its healing properties in Cuba and across the Caribbean. I did not know this until recently, before I recorded this episode and I was writing my notes. I Googled moringa tree and about its healing properties and where it was originally from. And it's originally native to the Himalayan foothills, and it's known as a miracle tree and used in traditional and Ayurvedic medicine, none of which I knew. Also, I don't think I've said this yet, but before you take any supplement or any non-traditional treatment or anything like that, if you're also under the care of an oncologist or another medical professional, always ask them if it's okay for you to take a supplement or drink a tea or whatever it is, because it could be contraindicated with traditional medication, your chemo or whatever else you might be taking. All right, so disclaimer out of the way. My neighbor, Enrique, would make himself tea, and after he learned that I was diagnosed with breast cancer, he would make me tea as well. And once a week, he would bring me this big glass jar with a screw top with the tea. It's like an amber colored tea. I would add a little honey to it and I would consume it. It was lovely. And it's part of the shared cultural heritage that we have, because I remember asking my mom, hey, have you heard of the moringa tree or the moringa plant? And my neighbor's bringing me this tea, and she, oh yes, in Cuba it's known for its healing properties and, has been used, and I remember it being used to help with certain ailments. And so here's my neighbor bringing me this tea, and he's elderly. I mean, I wish I could remember how old he was, but well into his 70s, if I'm not mistaken. And here he is bringing me this tea, checking in on me. And when he would come by to bring me the tea, sometimes his daughter-in-law would give it to me, but often he would come and just knock on the door and he would bring it to me. He would encourage me. He always would encourage me. He would always, tell me, estamos en la lucha, hay que seguir luchando, we got to keep fighting. I'm praying for you. You're going to be okay. You're strong. Look at me, he would say. And he was not only bringing me this home remedy, but he was bringing me these good wishes. And I don't know, he was my elder, right? So yeah, it hit different. And, I really appreciated the pep talks that he gave me, telling me that I was going to be okay. And he's fighting his own fight and showing up for mine. He eventually passed away from the pancreatic cancer. I was done with treatment already, but lived longer than anyone expected. And for me, he was one of my angels in survivorship. And again, what made him different from all the other well-meaning advice givers He wasn't trying to fix me. He was showing up for me. And, he brought something from our shared culture, something he prepared himself from his own experience of fighting, and he offered it to me, without any expertise or research or agenda, without any pressure, without any expectation. He was just, as my elder, saying, look, this is what I'm doing in my fight, and here's something that could help you in yours. And he didn't need me to try it. He didn't need me to report back. He just needed me to know that someone was thinking of me and of my healing. And what was the lesson for me there? The lesson was, in addition to setting boundaries generally, but find your angels. And when your angels, and I believe in angels and in guardian angels, and I know that I have a guardian angel. I have met my guardian angel, and Enrique was an angel for me. He showed up as an angel during my treatment and survivorship. And so when you find your angels, when they come into your life, let them in. Let them all the way in. And I just want you to take a minute now to pause, especially for my survivors who are recently diagnosed or still in treatment or shortly, like treatment wrapped up not too long ago or is about to wrap up. I want you to ask yourself right now, who is the Moringa neighbor in your life? Who has shown up without an agenda, without a fix, just with love? And have you let them all the way in? Think about that. So, how do I curate my circle and protect my peace during diagnosis and treatment and survivorship? This is an ongoing practice. And for me, the curation process, curating my inner circle, my inner cancer circle, didn't just happen in one moment. It wasn't like a single decision. It was an ongoing one. It was something gradual, beginning around the time that treatment started, when the supplements and the links and some unsolicited opinions, especially. The supplements and the links were not harmful. It was the unsolicited opinions that kind of, when those started to arrive, right? I started to think, I'm feeling really vulnerable right now, and I'm feeling really scared and afraid, and layering other people's worry and research and horror stories, their well-meaning but exhausting energy on top of that was costing me something that I just didn't have to spare at that particular moment. So, and I think I've, used this term in other episodes. I circled the wagons. In my cancer circle were my immediate family members, my husband's immediate family members, who I count as my immediate family members, my neighbors, my close friends. We have a tight-knit group of close friends who were there for my husband and I from the beginning. Some of my husband's close friends who showed up, no questions asked, no conversation needed, no visita required, and took the kids out to the zoo or dropped off some food and, left. Those are the people that remained in our inner circle. And whether they had offered a supplement or a diet or not, right? That kind of went away very early on, and everybody just pivoted to supporting me the best way they could. And I became more mindful also about what I shared, who I shared it with, when I shared it. I didn't really share a lot on social media, which there were people sharing their stories, their breast cancer survivor stories on social media. There were private Facebook groups for breast cancer survivors that I, went into and I consumed and I participated in, especially if there were private Facebook groups. But I didn't put a lot out there because it was exhausting. B, I was focusing on my own care and getting better and my treatment and all of that. And I didn't have extra energy even for that. When some people got like the full story of what was going on, other people just got the headlines, not because I was trying to hide anything, but because I knew, that I just knew that there were some people who were going to receive it and move on, and other people who were going to offer something in return that was not always going to be helpful. And so I also enlisted my husband as a gatekeeper and a buffer. And he knew the drill, like help was welcome, but that doesn't mean that you get access to me, especially not unannounced, not by dropping in, not by calling, whenever the impulse struck. And, I felt guilty doing that. It felt rude. I felt ungrateful. People were trying to help and I was filtering them out. But that curation, that process of curating my cancer circle also brought a lot of relief. And ultimately the relief was greater than the guilt. I felt real and immediate and necessary relief. And so I want to say protecting your peace at a time like this is not you being ungrateful. It's self-preservation. And self-preservation during cancer treatment is not optional. So what is the cultural weight of doing this, especially for a Latina woman? The family ties run really deep. The expectations that family has full unfettered access, and mine did, I have to repeat, my family did have full access. This was not like an inner family issue, right? But there are friends who consider themselves family or extended family, right? That expectation that people who know you and who have been in your life have access full, unfettered, without conditions, it's a value. Like that's a deeply held value. And setting limits on that access, it's similar to when you've just had a baby, right? And you want to limit access for a number of reasons, for health reasons, but also to protect your own peace and postpartum and all that. This is very similar. And setting limits can feel like a betrayal of the community that's also trying to sustain you, right? In a time where they are wanting to know how you're doing. They're praying for you. They're wanting to know what they can do to help. So the reframe there for me was, I wasn't closing the door. You're not closing the door. You're managing the flow. And my husband really was the one managing the flow, deciding how much came in at once, and then, opening and closing that door accordingly. So what are some practical tools? What can you actually do to protect your peace during this time, to set some limits and some boundaries? I have 3 or 4 tools for you in this episode. And number 1 is appoint a gatekeeper. One person, your spouse, your sister, your best friend, your caretaker, your parent, whose job it is to filter incoming information, manage visitor access. And when I say filter incoming information, I also refer to this. I consulted Dr. Google entirely too much. My husband had to repeatedly remind me to put my phone down, to not search the internet, to be careful with what I myself consume. So it's not just gatekeeping in terms of the kind of information that other people bring or the kind of access that other people have. You need your gatekeeper to also lovingly hold you accountable to what you consume yourself, right? So this person, they filter incoming information, they manage visitor access, they field the calls that maybe you don't have the energy for, and it's okay not to take calls. If you're an especially comprometido person who's like, feels a strong sense of compromiso, like, oh my gosh, someone's calling me, I have to answer, I have to take that call. Hand that off to someone else so that you don't have to feel the pressure or the guilt of not taking the phone call or not returning the phone call. Give your gatekeeper permission to say she's resting. She's not talking to anyone. She's not taking phone calls or visitors. She's not taking new information right now. So please don't share anything with her that you may have read or heard about cancer treatment. She'll reach out to you when she's feeling better, stronger, when she's ready. All of those things are okay for your gatekeeper to say. And my husband's an awesome gatekeeper. He was more than happy to say it. But give them permission and have an explicit conversation with your gatekeeper. If you're in newly diagnosed or in treatment right now and you're experiencing some of this tension with family or friends or community or work, have a conversation with your gatekeeper this week and tell them what you need filtered and give them the language to use if you want. They want to help, and this is how they can help. Tool number 2, prepare a response for the supplements and the diets and the research that people will offer you, inevitably. You don't have to argue with the research that someone brings you. That's exhausting. You don't have to explain why you're not trying it or whether you're going to try it or not. A simple, warm, sincere, closed door response like, thank you for thinking of me. My medical team has my treatment plan covered and I'm following their guidance. I really appreciate your love. Punto. That's it. You don't know more than that. So write that sentence down somewhere that you can see it before you have any conversations or interactions with well-meaning people. Practicing it out loud so it comes naturally when you need it. It's, for some of us, something as simple as that is going to feel like confrontation. So good for you to practice it with your gatekeeper. Okay. And it doesn't have to be the exact sentence that I just gave, something that feels comfortable for you, something that's kind and compassionate and firm. Tool number 3, name what you need specifically. And this, name what you need to anyone who is offering you something. I need company, not advice, right? Sometimes I told that to my husband. Honey, I just need you to sit with me right now, not tell me that I need to drink water, that I have to drink my soup or what I need. I just need you to sit with me, please. So that is, I need company, not advice, is something you can say to anyone. I need someone to sit with me, not fix me. I need you to bring food and stay for 20 minutes, not 2 hours. Those are the kinds of very, straightforward things that you can say to express what you need in that moment. And again, most people in your life genuinely want to help. And you may be thinking, but I don't want to bother them. Like I don't, not only do I need help managing the people who are coming in and offering me things that are not really supportive or helpful right now, but I don't want to ask them for what I need because then I feel like I'm bothering them. People want to be bothered. They just don't know how to help. And so specific asks give them a way to show up that actually works for you. So before your next visitor or call, ask yourself, what do I actually need from this interaction, from this visit? Then name it out loud at the start of the visit. Today I just need company. Can we talk about something other than cancer? Okay. Tool number 4. Find the angels and let them all the way in. Enrique, my Moringa neighbor, didn't ask. He just showed up week after week with something from his own hands and from his heart. When you find someone like that who shows up without agenda, without needing you to perform strength or gratitude or recovery, let them in fully. Those people are rare and they're also exactly what your healing requires. So the practical tool or the practical tip here with this tool is think of one person in your life who has shown up for you without agenda during this season. Reach out to them this week, not to update them, just to say, you have been a gift to me. Thank you. I'm going to pause here for just a second because if what we've been talking about is landing for you, I want you to know there's somewhere you can take it. If you're a cancer survivor who has always been the strong one, and you're quietly wondering who you are now that everything has changed, you don't have to figure that out alone. I'm Eileen Lopez-Tomei, cancer survivorship coach and fellow survivor. And my coaching practice exists for women exactly like you. If today's episode is resonating and you're ready to go deeper, book a free discovery call at paperbell.me/Eileen Lopez-Tomei. The link is in the show notes. Okay, now back to you and to the person who brought me a jar of tea every week while he was fighting his own cancer. So we're back at my church, in the back of the church, talking to this survivor who triggered my fear spiral. And I want to name what I wish I'd had the language for in that moment. I could have said, I'm not in a place right now to hear about what the recovery was like for you. I need encouragement, not details. I mean, I didn't have the language yet culturally or, the way that I was socialized. I certainly didn't have the presence of mind. It's not the presence of mind. Like, I didn't have that practice yet, right? Not only did I not have the language, I didn't have that practice. My practice was to listen politely and nod and smile. All the while inside my head, I was freaking out. But I do now, and hopefully you do now as well. This is what I'm giving you today. These 4 practical tips, the lessons from my own story, and especially the story of my neighbor and the jar of tea and the pep talk on the doorstep. He's gone now, but I carry him with me. And not just because of the tea that he brought me, but because of what he modeled. How to show up for someone who is sick without making it about yourself. How to love someone without needing them to receive it in a particular way. And here's what I want for you, dear listener. I want you to know that you're allowed to protect your healing space. That is not selfishness. That is survival. You're allowed to filter what comes in, to manage the flow, to say, not now, not this, not you, and say it with love. And you're allowed to let the angels, and there are so many angels out there, and I hope that so many of them have already come into your life, but you're allowed to let them all the way in, every one of them. And I want to speak to the woman who has been letting everyone in, because I know you don't want to seem ungrateful. I know that the family ties run deep, the community ties run deep. I know that you were raised to accommodate everyone, even people that aren't being super helpful. What do I want you to know that I wish someone had told me? I want you to know that it's okay to protect your peace, that your peace is valuable, that you are valuable, that your health matters, that your recovery matters, that having a space that is comforting and healing and part of your treatment, a peaceful space, is something that you deserve. Sana, sana, colita de rana. Si no sana hoy, sanarás mañana. And I know that you will heal and bring healing in your own journey. Find your angels, protect your peace. You're allowed to heal on your own terms. Hasta la próxima vez, hermana. Sana, sana. If this episode gave you permission for something you've been afraid to do, share it with a survivor who needs to hear it. She's out there right now, burping up frankincense oil and wondering if it's okay to stop. And if you're ready to figure out what your ecosystem of healing, what your healing space actually needs, come find me. Book a free discovery call at paperbell.me/Eileen Lopez Tomei. I'd love to be in your corner with you. See you next week. Sana, sana. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of Sana Sana, the show that helps you heal and restore the parts of your ecosystem that were depleted after a breast cancer diagnosis. If you liked the episode, please leave us a rating and review so we can reach more incredible survivors como tú who want to heal with us. If you want to stay connected with our growing community, check out our Instagram at Eileen Lopez Tomei Coach and share what part of the episode touched your heart today. See you next week.